I'm letting Valentine's Day inform the theme for February in the Mystery Journal with lots of deep crimson tones, lace textures, and little love notes peppered throughout. Hi, it's Erin, and I had some technical difficulties putting this video together, so please bear with me. I'm working in the A5 Sage Leaves journal from Sassy Pigeon HQ, and that, along with all of the other stuff I'm using in this video, is linked for you in the description wherever possible. I'm starting with a Dutch door, so I'm actually flipping to the second page and adding down some decoration along the right-hand side, so that when I cut away some of the first page, you'll see this revealed underneath. Sometimes a Dutch door is for a really functional reason, and sometimes it's just decorative. This one is purely for decorative purposes. I just liked the idea of the little bit of extra visual interest that a Dutch door would give here. And this one's going to be an uneven Dutch door. I'm going to be following the edge of a floral PET tape, this one here. This is the Dreamy Merlot PET tape from the Washi tape shop, and its beautiful deep reds are where I got the inspiration for this entire theme. My plan here is to add this in a vertical strip along the front page and then cut along the edge following the shape of the flowers to reveal that beautiful script washi tape that's underneath. I've also added some really pale pencil lines onto the page first so that I can make sure I'm not going to be revealing any blank page underneath. All of my design is going to sit on top of where that script washi tape sits, so I'll get the effect that I want. I thought I'd elaborate a little bit more on what I mean when I say that this PET tape inspired the entire theme. Quite often when I'm setting up a bullet journal layout, I will choose one piece of stationery and literally build the theme around it. So I'll find things that have similar colors or that contrast really well with it, and those are the only things that I'll use in the way that complements or contrasts with that original piece. This tape has a very beautiful deep red, which of course I'm really tying into for the rest of this theme, but it also has some lighter pinks, it has some soft greens, it has some kind of creamy whites, and it even has a little pop of orange, which I've chosen to ignore for this particular layout, but you could choose the orange and run with it if that was what you wanted to do. I've chosen instead to lean into the reds and the pinks, and I actually specifically bought this red paper for this theme. I wanted specifically a deep red, not a kind of bright red, but one that was a little bit more muted and maybe a touch darker. I got this paper at Daiso near me in Australia, but you could use any red paper. It could just be printer paper, it could be origami paper. I think works really well in journals because it's very thin. And I'm using a lot of torn edge textures in this setup too because that just feels a little bit softer and more romantic to me. So I've really just gone through all of my stationery and pulled out everything that I felt would work with this PET tape, and that's how I'm constructing my theme as I go through. So I didn't have everything totally planned out as to where things would go, but lately I'm really enjoying flying by the seat of my pants and coming up with my layouts as I go. Unfortunately, I can't link you to the sticker sheet for that beautiful capital F. That was actually one that I picked up in store from Stash World here in Brisbane. They have a lot of really cool one-of-a-kind things because they buy a lot of really awesome old dead stock from brands that are no longer in business, and so a lot of the time when they have something like that, they only have one, so I just got really lucky with that find. It's just like when you love a piece of clothing you see on someone and you ask them about them and they're like, oh, I thrifted it, or it's vintage. It's the same kind of deal, unfortunately. I wanted to add some bold contrasts and black, so I've layered on a beautiful black and red washi tape from Paper Monogatari. This one's from their Pumpkin Spice collection, and I'm layering it up with these text stickers that are also on a black background. I like the idea of including something a little bit romantic and a little bit of text in this setup, which is not something that I would usually do. That's the beauty of this whole mystery journal thing, because this journal actually wasn't for me. This is one that I set up for the entire first half of the year and then gave away on my channel. More on that in a little bit, but first I'm adding some more elements, some little envelopes because, you know, love notes, love letters, it makes sense. Those are from a sticker sheet from Sticky. And I've also added a lighter pink floral washi tape as well. That one's from the Floral Lane set from the Washi tape shop. And that's the cover spread done, so let's turn the page and move on to the calendar. Just to mix things up a little bit, I decided to make my calendar boxes all separate from each other this time, so they're all their own little square, which means it takes a little bit longer to draw out all of the lines, but it's not out of my way, I don't mind. I'm also drawing them all out in a red Tombow using the bullet end rather than the brush tip end, so I get a nice crispy, kind of bold but not too thick line. This one's the 857, which I think is called Chinese Red. You have to keep your wits about you a little bit when you're doing these shorter lines because it's really easy to accidentally draw through into the next box and have some line where you weren't supposed to have some line, but I have a white paint marker that kind of solves all my problems, so always grateful for that. I also recommend pausing every now and then to wipe off your ruler so that you don't get smudges. So let's chat about this whole mystery journal concept in case you're new to my channel and you don't know what's going on here. This is a journal that I set up for 6 months of the year and then give away to a mystery person on my channel, which is why it's called the Mystery Journal. At the time I'm setting it up, I don't know who it's going to be for, so I use it as a bit of a challenge to make a more universally approachable journal rather than one that's just tailored specifically to me. Hopefully that gives people in a more traditional employment situation some more useful inspiration than maybe my own journal can be. It also gives me an opportunity to use up some more of the stationery from my stash because I get quite a lot of stationery come across my desk, which is an awesome, very privileged position to be in, but not all of it is perfect for my taste, not all of it is perfectly suited to what I like to do with my journal, and sometimes I just love the challenge of using something that I would never use for myself. This is actually my third mystery journal, so I've been doing this for a little while now, about a year and a half. And yes, I did set up the entirety of this journal all the way from January through to June back in November and December. You can see some of that process on my vlog for December if you're keen. So yes, this journal is complete and is already with the winner so that they can use it for the first half of this year if they want to. This one went to the UK, in case you're curious. I'm introducing another PET tape here. This one is from the Baroque Lace collection from the Washi tape shop, this beautiful pink lace. Too perfect for this theme, love it. February being as short as it is means I've got lots of opportunity here for decoration, which I always love to see. I'm really leaning into that torn edge thing here and kind of making two decorative islands, one at the top and one at the bottom, that are really anchored around that red paper. And for the sake of consistency, I'm trying to make sure I have all of my little repeated pieces of stationery represented on every page. So there should be some of those black text stickers, there should be some of the roses, and there should be some of the red paper every time. The other washi tapes can kind of come and go as needed. These next two pages are for different purposes. On the left I'm going to have my goals and favorites page, and on the right I'm going to have the one line a day. But I don't want them to feel like two really separate, disjointed pages, so I'm going to set them up at the same time together, and that way the decoration will kind of flow from one into the next and they'll feel much more cohesive than they would have if I'd done the left page and then the right page. That's another thing that's a little bit different about the mystery journal, is that every time I set it up, I'm going to be including the same pages within that journal so that the winner of the journal has the same pages consistently to use each month. It can vary a bit more in my own journal because I'm working out what's working for me and what's not at any given time, but this one's always going to be consistent. I'll just vary how I set them up so that they look a bit different from one month to the next. I also wanted to mention these letter stamps that I'm using. I thought they were a good match to the typewriter-y kind of font that's on those text stickers, so this is my way of kind of adding some consistency there too. I used them back on the calendar spread as well, and now they're going on every page going forward for my headings too. The marker I'm using with them here is one of the Artx metallic brush tip paint markers, but you can use any paint marker that you like. It should still work, especially if it has a brush tip. Also, we're about to get into that technical difficulties territory that I mentioned earlier, so my camera's recently started doing something strange. It's literally never done this until December. I can record for half an hour at a time before the camera stops recording because that's its maximum recording time limit, and sometimes it runs out of battery while I'm filming and occasionally it takes me a second to notice. That's all well and good, it's always been fine in the past. Sometimes I miss things, but that's okay. Also, we're about to get a visit from a very fluffy Mitsu boy, so prepare yourself if you have dogs in the room. All of a sudden, lately, it has stopped actually converting the files that I was filming while I had the camera run out of battery to a video file. It just makes them this other, like .mdt or something file format, and for a minute I didn't realize, and so I didn't save those files because I didn't realize they were video files, which means I've missed the rest of the setup for this spread. This is what the goals and favorites page looks like. This is what the one line a day page ended up looking like. At the time I was transferring these files over, which was quite far in advance of when I'm actually editing the videos, I didn't know what those files were, so I just deleted them, not realizing that I could convert them back into video files with the right software. So I'm so sorry about that missing stuff. We're jumping into the mood tracker page here kind of halfway through. This is going to be one of those fun illustrative mood trackers where you can colour in the little design every day in a colour that represents your mood, and I've got all the illustrations from some stamp sets that I have in my collection. One is the Vintage Rose stamp set that you can see on the left there from Notebook Therapy. The candles and the heart shapes and the potion bottles and stuff are all from various sets from the Quirky Cup Collective. I've made sure there are 28 little stamps here for the winner to colour in, so there's one for every day, and that stamp in the middle is where I'm going to add the lettering for the word mood so that it's denoted that this is in fact a mood tracker. I've also added the black ink for these stamps just with a black Tombow brush marker rather than using any kind of stamp pad, because I wanted to make sure it was water-based so that they could color in other pens over it, and it's not going to affect anything that's on the other side of the page. Sometimes I find with the VersaFine ink pad, even though it gives you the nicest looking stamp, it doesn't play so nicely with water-based markers down the track, and things go a bit weird on the other side of the page, so I was trying to avoid that for the winner of this journal. And I guess I'm not feeling super linear for the setup this time because I did the right page first and now we're going back to the left page. This is going to be a habit tracker. This is a habit tracker that requires the writing of many, many numbers, but I think it looks really nice when it's done, so in my opinion it's worth it. I'm adding my decoration to the page first this time though, because I know exactly how much room I need to take up with the habit tracker. It's already penciled out on the page. Let's get into this habit tracker's functional bit. So this is kind of a grid table sort of a setup. The column on the left is where you will write the habit, and the column on the right is where all the numbers for the days go. It is a 28-day month for February, which means it divides very nicely by 2, which means I can put one row of numbers on the top and one row on the bottom, and then I can have 2 spaces tall for each habit, and it's very nice and even and balanced. I love that. I like to leave room for tracking 6 habits for each of my mystery journal habit trackers. And I also like to leave an extra row at the top and at the bottom so I can put the initial for each day of the week that corresponds to the top row on the top row and to the bottom row on the bottom row, just so that there's like a little reference. Although that ended up being the same for February. Both the top row and the bottom row start on Saturday, so that's interesting. All of my brush lettering that I'm doing in this layout, I'm using the Pentel brush sign pens for. They are my absolute favorite go-to pens for brush lettering. I think they are so beautiful. And really versatile too. The size of the brush tip means that you can make bigger letters if you need to, but you can also fit into smaller spaces, and I really like that about them. I'm editing out most of the cutting around the PET tape for the sake of making this video not super boring to watch, but quite a lot of the time spent setting this one up was actually just cutting out the tape. I really do love the new pre-cut ones, but this isn't one of them, sadly. Just gonna add some little, essentially emojis, little faces down the bottom here that correspond to moods so that the person who has this journal can add little color swatches there that correspond to the mood that they're going to color their days in with, and add a little bit of pink over here on the habit tracker, and then this spread is ready to go. I think the mood tracker here is so cute. I actually really want to do that for my own journal soon too, because I want to color it in. Once again, I'm working backwards here. I'm doing the right page first, this time just because I know it's going to be a really quick and easy one to do, and I thought it would be good to do this one first, just kind of get it out of the way. This one's going to be a reflection page, and I'm starting with a big sheet of the red kind of as a background so that this beautiful white lace piece of paper really pops against something, because if you put white on white, you're not really going to see it, but if you put white on red, look at those details. The reflection space is just for reflecting on the month, typically at the end of it, or you could reflect on the month before if you preferred. So this is just a space for a block of text to go, and the big rose is also from Paper Monogatari from the Botanist Diary collection. This page definitely needed some contrast, so I went straight for my black text stickers, and then I realized I'd sort of forgotten about them on the last couple spreads, so I'm going to go back through and just add these over the top, just pop them in little spots where I think they make sense, just to make sure that consistency's there and we're really keeping the theme alive. This remaining left page that is still blank is for a spending tracker, which is an absolute essential must-have in all of my mystery journal setups because I think financial literacy is really, really important. To the point where I have a whole notebook for it for myself personally. I used to keep pretty much exactly this page in my own bullet journal, but it was really annoying to blur out every time I wanted to show people my journal, so rather than do that, I just moved it into a new journal, and it's also quite useful to just have it all in one place, but for purposes of the mystery journal, it's still being included within the pages of the monthly setups. People like to approach their spending tracking in different ways. I like to track everything that I spend because that gives me a really good idea of where my money's going, but some people prefer to just track the bigger purchases. Either way is totally fine, as long as you know how much money you have and where it's going, then you're doing great. I have a category column in my spending tracker where you can assign things like living essentials like paying your rent and stuff versus like bills or entertainment or groceries and food versus dining out, stuff like that, so that you can really categorize your spending. That actually harks back to the cash flow tracking spread that's back at the beginning of this journal too. It all ties in together. Our next spread that we're going to set up after this one is pretty much just a blank spread but pre-decorated. This is so that the winner of this journal can add anything that they might need that I haven't thought to include. Everyone's circumstances are different and I am unfortunately not psychic, so I like to bake in this flexibility so the person who ends up with this journal can really use it in a way that's effective for them. I also include a couple of completely blank spreads in between each of the monthly setups so they can add more stuff there too if they want to. Those ones are just not decorated, but I do send extra little bits of the decorative stuff along with the journal too so that they can have a good time and just play with stationery if they don't have anything else that they need to use it for. So if they didn't have a particular function in mind for this one, it could be a place for a quote spread, it could be for memory keeping, it's just whatever they want to make it, and they have the extra stuff to decorate it with. If they want to just make it a big junk journal spread too, that's a-okay. Moving on to the first of the weekly spreads, and unfortunately this is going to be the last of the spreads that I share with you in this video because again, I was having some trouble with my files. I don't know what happened, I just seemed to end here, so I'm so sorry about that. I will again include some images of the other weekly spreads that I set up after this one in case you are looking for some more inspiration. This one is such a good weekly if you have lots of stuff that you need to plan on a given day but you like to do it on a weekly. You just divide each page into 8, make one of those spaces a space for decoration, and then add your planning space in the other gaps, and there you go, you've got a really spacious weekly. Something I especially love about this weekly that we're setting up right now, I've done the pink Tombow carnation, I think it's 761 as the base color for where I put the heading for each day of the month, and then I'm going over that for my lettering with the Chinese red Tombow, and I love this pink and red contrast. I usually wouldn't choose these for myself, but I think they look so good together, especially for a Valentine's Day theme. Unfortunately, this is about as far as we're going to get together though, so I will show you an image of what this one looks like all finished and fully decorated. Here she is. I added some extra pops of washi and some more florals, but still heaps of room for planning. Here is the second weekly. This one is a little bit more condensed as far as planning space. Then we've got this one, very horizontally oriented, and then the last one is a lot less structured, it's a little bit more loosey-goosey. I also apparently don't have a horizontally oriented flip through for you, so here is a very zoomed in version of the vertical one, which I also used for the intro. I had to get pretty creative for this video, not just in the collage way, but in the assembling the video way. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope you got some inspiration for your own February journal layout from this video. And if you made it all the way to the end here and you're watching this right now, please make sure that you leave a rose emoji in your comment so that I know that you stuck around. I've got so much more mystery journal content coming for you this year, and I'll be giving away another one in May, so if you're keen to get your hands on one of these for yourself, make sure that you stay subscribed. I've also got playlists of past mystery journal content on my channel too, in case you're looking for some more inspiration there. If you haven't set up your own bullet journal for 2025 yet, that's okay, you've still got time. Here's a link to the new journal setup for the mystery journal, and underneath that is a link to a playlist of every mystery journal setup from 2024.